Kathleen Steele is charged in the death of a 2-week-old baby. Pinellas County Sheriff Bob Gualtieri is talking about the case right now, and we want to listen in briefly here.
We fast forward to this past Monday, August 8th. We know that about 11 o'clock a.m. on Monday morning, Steele took baby Kathleen along with Frankie and Philip to a pediatrician's office in St. Petersburg. Steele claimed the baby was not eating properly and wanted the baby checked by the pediatrician. We spoke with the pediatrician and he found nothing medically wrong with the baby. But importantly, in the physician's examination of the baby at 11 o'clock a.m. on Monday morning, he states that there was no sign of trauma to the baby's skull was intact, and there was no bruising on the baby's face. We know that after leaving the pediatrician's office, Frankie, the 6-year-old, dropped his mom's cell phone and cracked the screen. They went to a business called CPR Cell Phone Repair at 1472 66th Street North in St. Petersburg and dropped the phone off. After going to a restaurant in St. Pete, they returned to the cell phone repair shop at 1:50 p.m., where Steele left baby Kathleen, 6-year-old Frankie, and 3-year-old Philip in the vehicle alone. And this was a van-type vehicle with captain's chairs so that Frankie and Philip could get out of their seats, stand up, and move around. Baby Kathleen was in the car seat. Steele turned the car off, locked the doors, rolled the windows up, and went inside the business. Steele left the kids unattended while she was in this business for over 30 minutes, which is confirmed by video. While in the car with Frankie and Philip, baby Kathleen was acting up and crying. Frankie, the 6-year-old, removed baby Kathleen from the car seat and began flipping her multiple times back and forth, dropping her on the floor, slamming her head against the ceiling, striking her in the face, and causing severe trauma to the baby's head and face. We found blood in the car that's consistent with where Frankie slammed the baby. The baby's skull was fractured in several places, and her entire face was severely bruised. The baby was simply beaten, traumatized, gross swelling about her face. The skull was cracked in numerous places, described as probably mush. And one of the worst things that I've ever seen, especially with a 13-day-old, and her appearance was one of just a kid that had been pummeled. Frankie, the 6-year-old, then put baby Kathleen back in the car seat, and when Steele returned to the car, told his mother in relation to Kathleen's condition, it's, quote, serious. Steele disregarded Frankie's notification to his mother that the baby was in distress. She proceeded to another business before going home. When they arrived home, Steele brought the baby inside and noticed that she was in distress, asking 6-year-old Frankie if, quote, the baby was even breathing. I'm telling you, this kid's face was a mess. There's no mistaking the condition that this 13-day-old infant was in. And as I said, she had been pummeled. She was at that point blue and cold to the touch. The baby had likely been dead since they left the cell phone store at about 2:15 p.m. However, when they got home a couple hours later, instead of calling 911, Steele called a neighbor who was a nurse. The neighbor responded to the home, immediately recognized the baby was deceased, but caused to have called 911 anyway. As I mentioned, baby Kathleen was transported to St. Pete General Hospital, where she was pronounced dead. The autopsy, consistent with what we saw, the external observations, revealed severe trauma to the baby and multiple skull fractures. Frankie, the 6-year-old, admitted to detectives that he slammed baby Kathleen to the ground, struck her head on the ceiling, and struck her in the face, causing these terrible and violent injuries. On Monday night, our Child Protection Investigation Division removed Frankie and Philip from Steele's custody, and they have been placed in foster care since Monday night. Due to his age of being 6 years old, Frankie will not be criminally charged with the homicide of 13-day-old Kathleen. He'll remain in DCF custody until a dependency judge determines where he should be placed. I've talked in the last couple of days with DCF Secretary Mike Carroll and DJJ Secretary Christine Daly, and they and their staffs have participated in the decision as to Frankie's current placement and will coordinate further evaluations in the appropriate course of action as to Frankie for the future. Kathleen Steele, the mother, was arrested by Pinellas County Sheriff's Office deputies this afternoon and has been charged with aggravated manslaughter for the child abuse and leaving the children unattended in the car for over 30 minutes, allowing 6-year-old Frankie to kill his baby sister. Needless to say, there's a lot troubling about this case, not the least of which is a 6-year-old boy who violently killed his 13-day-old sister, and Kathleen Steele's abuse and neglect by leaving the kids unattended in the car for over 30 minutes. You know, but there's another troubling aspect of this case, and that's some supposed medical professional who agreed to impregnate a 62-year-old woman with her dead husband's sperm, and she gives birth to a baby that by all accounts she's unable to adequately care for. Steele even made statements in the last couple of days that she was not finished, as apparently there's more frozen sperm and she wanted to have yet another baby boy. Something is seriously messed up with that. I can tell you that those of us that have been doing this in this business for a very long time have never seen anything like this. I can tell you that in talking to Bernie McCabe, the state attorney, talking to Secretary Carroll, Secretary Daly, and others, that nobody can ever recall a situation in our history, here in Florida at least, where we've had a 6-year-old kill a 13-day-old and a 6-year-old boy who engages in this type of just vicious brutalization of a baby and killed somebody. So, you know, there's a tragedy here. Probably at the end of the day, Frankie's the victim. Frankie's got a lot of issues and a lot of problems. And, you know, it's a very sad case to say the least. But the accountability belongs with Kathleen Steele, the mother, who was, by all accounts, ill-equipped to have a baby at 62 years old, to have this infant, to care for these kids. And Frankie and Philip at 6 and 3 were running amok and were unsupervised, and what others saw was consistent with what happened on Monday, in that she didn't care for the kids and was negligent and neglectful and abused them by leaving these kids in the car. So that's the situation.
You have been listening to Sheriff Bob Gualtieri give some staggeringly graphic information about the death of a 2-week-old infant. You can see that this has been a case that has impacted his agency quite a bit. A woman
no, that's why I ran through it with you.
Charges, aggravated manslaughter related to child abuse for leaving her 3 children unattended in a van for 30 minutes, at which time the sheriff says the 6-year-old oldest brother killed the 2-week-old baby in the vehicle. Our reporter Peter Bernard is digging into this story even more. We are going to check back in with him in just a couple of minutes.